Lewis Hamilton has been at Mercedes for 11 years now, and his current contract will keep him there for another 2. Before that, he spent 6 seasons at McLaren, who he was also a junior driver for. Over his long career, he's gained a reputation for loyalty, and especially at Mercedes, he's seen as part of the essence of the team. So when Christian Horner revealed that Hamilton had tried to join his team to get into a competitive enough car to win his 8th World Championship title, it sent Mercedes and Toto Wolff into meltdown. Today, I'll tell you all about how the Mercedes boss Toto Wolff is responding to Hamilton's attempt to jump ship, and what the rest of the grid thinks. This all started with one innocuous enough interview with the Daily Mail by Christian Horner, but the context for the story goes much farther back. You'll remember the will he won't he rollercoaster ride of Hamilton's contract extension with the Silver Arrows. It spanned well over a year in the end, and every time Toto Wolff was asked whether Lewis would sign an extension or not, he said it was just one meeting or days away, or it just needed pen putting to paper. These statements from Toto were always wrapped up in heavily laid-on flattery for the driver that has helped make Wolff a very successful and rich man. You can't blame the Mercedes boss. Lewis Hamilton helped Mercedes dominate in Formula 1 for 8 years, and he made the team the most marketable on the grid. It is that marketability that has made Wolff an unimaginable amount of money. Losing Hamilton to another team would have been devastating for Mercedes this season. George Russell has not looked like the replacement that Mercedes thought he would be, and Nick de Vries proved earlier this season that he may not have been the talent that Toto said he was for so many years. Because of how long it took Mercedes to get Hamilton to sign a new contract, everyone knew that behind the scenes, something was going wrong. There were plenty of rumors for reasons why. Some said it might be due to the money Mercedes were offering. Lewis was no longer the best paid driver on the grid since Verstappen's new Red Bull contract, and apparently Lewis thought he was worth more. Another potential answer was that Hamilton was demanding a contract that would guarantee him a paid job at Mercedes after his retirement, as an ambassador or an advisor to the team. The one reason that was probably the least likely has actually turned out to be the correct answer. There was discussion over Lewis joining another team, but the general consensus was that he could never join Red Bull because of Max, and Ferrari wouldn't have the space till the 2025 season, so he couldn't go there either. In reality, it was the potential of joining both those teams that caused the year-long delay of Lewis's contract extension. When Christian Horner revealed Hamilton's team had inquired about him joining Red Bull from 2024 onwards, it wasn't that big of a surprise. But the reaction from Hamilton, Toto, and the Mercedes team has shocked the F1 world. Lewis has straight up denied that any approach was made to the Red Bull team. Hamilton said he did not contact Red Bull, and Horner had reached out to him suggesting an end-of-season meeting. I've checked with everyone on my team and no one has spoken to them, but they have tried to reach out to us, Hamilton said. Basically, I picked up my old phone that I just found at home that had my old number on it. I switched it on, and obviously hundreds of messages came through. And I realized there was one from Christian to get together and have a chat at the end of the season. The 7-time champion added, "Initially, I just replied on my new phone. It was after a weekend. It was quite late on I found the message. It was from earlier on in the year. It was like months later, and I just said, 'Congratulations on the amazing season, and I hope we're able to compete with you soon.' And he replied, repeating the same thing." Hamilton's response to the question about his management asking for a meeting with Red Bull doesn't really make a huge amount of sense. While Lewis has had a lot of success at Mercedes, after 2022 and the start of 2023, it would be an absolute failure by his team to not inquire about a drive in the best car on the grid for 2024. Toto Wolff may see Lewis as part of his family, but at the end of the day, Hamilton is a Formula 1 driver, and that means that above all else, he is driven by winning. And if he has a better chance of winning at another team, then he'll be inquiring about that possibility. That is just the way that the Formula 1 world works. It always has been and always will be. By saying that Horner is lying, all Lewis has done is brought more attention to the subject and invited the question of, why would he deny it? For Christian, there isn't anything to gain from making this up. Asked whether he thought it was strange for Horner to be talking about his contractual situation, Hamilton said, "Not really. If you think about it, there are a lot of people here who really like to drop my name in conversations because they know it's going to make waves. And if you're a little bit lonely and not getting much attention, that is the perfect thing to do. Just mention my name." Horner and his team are winning everything Formula 1 has on offer at the moment, so trying to say that they're attention-seeking doesn't make a huge amount of sense. Questioned about the discrepancy between the two versions of events, a Red Bull spokesperson said Hamilton's father was the one who made contact with Horner. Hamilton's father, Anthony, is not involved in his son's management or commercial activity anymore, but he is still a close confidant of the driver. Hamilton said he had reassured his team principal Toto Wolff when the story broke this week that it was not true. "I did tell Toto," he said, "especially when the story broke because I have so much respect for Toto. We have a great relationship. Also, I want my team to know because people think those things and it's never positive. Lewis knows Toto as well as anyone. They've worked together for 11 years now. Maybe he's worried that this story will hurt Toto, breaking down that great relationship they have. From the outside though, that relationship has always appeared to be Wolff trying to keep hold of Hamilton and keep him happy. Lewis's record-breaking contract extension is further proof to that point. While Lewis might be denying, those in the media with first-hand experience of being a Formula One driver are convinced that conversations did happen between Hamilton and Red Bull. Asked about it, Martin Brundle said, "This little crucible we operate in, a few hundred meters of concrete, the same people, you wouldn't be doing your job for a driver if you didn't just check the field out and see what's out there, have a lever against your negotiations or some options. Of course, they don't want to be seen to talk to other teams. It upsets your team. But for sure, they'll have a good chat." Formula One world champion Damon Hill added, "As Martin Brundle said, you'd be foolish to go in as he did this year, Lewis, and go to Toto and say, 'Can I race for you again next year? I haven't got anything else on the table.' That wouldn't be wise, so it's always interesting. And if you can get yourself into a better position, either pay-wise or competitive-wise, and I think with Lewis it would definitely be competitive motivation rather than money, then he'd jump at it." Brundle went on to say that the fact it took so long to get the contract extension signed between Mercedes and Hamilton is all the proof he needs that Lewis was 100% talking to other teams behind the scenes. While to the rest of the world, this talk might not be much of a surprise, Toto Wolff has not taken the news well. Speaking to the media in Abu Dhabi, Wolff looked completely shocked at the potential that his driver had considered going to another team instead of staying with the Mercedes family. "We don't understand what he's thinking to come up with these things," he said. So what happened is that Christian, through an agency that we work with, wanted to have contact details to speak about the seat. That's how the whole thing went. It was Christian inquiring about Lewis's availability. It's not about a seat, it was just blah. I've seen it, so I don't know what drives him to come up with this. While Toto is saying that Christian spoke to an agency that Mercedes works with, Hamilton is saying he had a text on an old phone. Those are not the same story, further adding to this narrative that Hamilton is trying to save face for Wolff. This is Formula One. These conversations about contracts are happening all the time, but by trying to cover it up, it looks like Lewis was having these conversations behind Mercedes' back. The likely situation is that Hamilton's team were telling Mercedes they weren't considering any other options. Instead, there were just little issues with the contract, or Lewis couldn't look over it at the moment due to other commitments and a lack of time. But it's fine, the contract will be signed once he has a spare afternoon, and these little niggles are solved. That story is just a way to play for time though, while they explore the options at Red Bull and Ferrari for a more competitive drive for 2024. And it makes perfect sense. No one who has followed Formula One this season really believes that a driver in a Mercedes is going to have a better chance at winning a world championship in 2024 than a driver in a Red Bull. The situation of Lewis joining him at Red Bull for 2024 was put to Verstappen in the lead up to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix weekend. Max was typically unimpressed by the media's questions. "I'm not interested. I don't know anything when I was asked about it either. It's just never going to happen. That scenario doesn't exist." The reigning world champion was then asked whether or not he would like the opportunity to prove himself against Hamilton, to which he replied, "What do I have to prove then? I don't have to prove anything. Then there will always be excuses, like he's too old. It's never right. There is always something else to talk about." When Max came along and took the fight to Lewis in 2021, there was a huge variety of excuses used for how he was able to do it. He was too aggressive, and if he drove like a respectful F1 driver, he wouldn't win. No winning F1 driver has ever been respectful. Then he was the human error champion after Michael Massey's mistake in Abu Dhabi. In 2022 and this year, it was just the car and Red Bull favouring him. How quickly the Formula One world forgot Mercedes moving Bottas out the way for all those years, or that Merc had by far the best car on the grid from 2014 onwards. I'm not saying either driver is better than the other. I'm certainly not a Max fan. Just pointing out the hypocrisy in the arguments against Max. Max may say he has nothing to prove. You might agree or disagree with that depending on your opinion of the two drivers, but the thought of having Hamilton line up on the grid next to Verstappen is mouth-watering from a fan's perspective. Verstappen and Hamilton fans would finally be able to get bragging rights over who is the best driver, and for the rest of us, it would be incredibly entertaining. Whatever is going on at Mercedes behind the scenes, these comments from Christian Horner have got Toto Wolff upset. They've either blindsided him or the whole situation has been handled incredibly poorly by Mercedes in the media. But whichever it is, Hamilton is trying his hardest to make it into nothing to protect Toto and his team. Are you surprised that Lewis was speaking with other teams behind Mercedes' backs? Or are you F1 savvy enough to be completely unsurprised by this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.